like to turn to a related issue in the healthcare space. The Senate will soon vote on President Trump's nominee for Secretary of Health and Human Services. I can think of very few others, and I've only been here 42 years, but I can think of very few others as qualified to take the helm of this very large ship than Mr. Alex Azar. As Secretary of HHS, Mr. Azar would be responsible for trillions of dollars in spending, liabilities, and contracts that make up the backbone of our healthcare system. What's more, Madam President, HHS is still in the process of off-ramping many of the poor decisions made throughout the 8 years of the Obama administration. Unfortunately, many of those policies, regulations, procedures, and practices still remain in place, continuing to undermine the sustainability of programs like Medicare and Medicaid and artificially propping up the so-called Affordable Care Act. But the good news is that Mr. Azar brings with him nearly 2 decades of experience in the healthcare system, working in both the private and public sectors. Mr. Azar spent several years as a senior official at HHS, holding key positions overseeing Medicare Part D and Medicare Advantage. He also led HHS's responses to the anthrax attacks shortly after 9/11, the SARS and monkeypox crises, Hurricane Katrina, and many others. Clearly, Mr. Azar has seen both the good and the bad at HHS and knows how to manage them. I don't think there's anyone here, even on the other side of the aisle, who would contest that. In fact, in the past, Mr. Azar has actually been confirmed twice with experience both on the company side and the government side of healthcare. He is now only more experienced and knowledgeable. I think the broad exercise will serve him well, particularly at this critical time when the HHS Secretary will need to be intensely focused on the opioid epidemic and other major problems facing our country. No doubt, all of these are reasons why we reported Mr. Azar out of the Finance Committee with a bipartisan vote. If we set aside the partisan and the preconceived notions some have about certain industries, Mr. Azar would likely get a near unanimous vote. So I hope at least some of our Democratic colleagues will vote to confirm him. I urge all of my colleagues to join me in doing so. And with that, Madam President, I yield the floor and suggest the absence of a quorum.